Well, Uncle Doug,
Uncle Mark,
we're going to have a little bit of a graphic conversation, I suppose.
is this a trigger warning?
It should be. It should be. But I'll tell you something. I have never. Here's something I've never thought.
Okay.
My penis is too big. Right?
You've never had that moment?
No, I've never thought that.
By like 10%.
By like 10%. So, but for those of you who have that thought or have that feeling or see your baby and think, you know what, that dick is too big.
You know what this kid needs? Mutilation.
Yeah. Uncle Dan has a
my
solution.
baby is almost perfect.
Right.
If I could just take a little off the edge.
Uncle Dan has a solution for too big baby dicks. Don't you, Dan?
Well, okay. So here's the dealio. As you may have guessed, ladies and gentlemen, nieces and nephews, we're going to be talking about circumcision. Male this time. We can talk about female genital mutilation.
The evil of FGM another time. But today is cock talk.
Yeah,
It's
with
cock
Uncle
talk.
Dan.
That's right.
Or the world's worst weight loss program.
It is literally, as I was reading through this, I can't tell you the number of times I cringed in my research for this. It is difficult because we're talking about cutting off part of a human penis, and I'm not okay with it.
And doing it to a baby.
Doing it to you can do it to a grown person.
You sure can.
We'll get to that
I'm
too.
sure we
I
will.
wish you luck if you try.
Well, some gentlemen elect for this.
Yeah,
procedure.
I know.
And we'll talk about that. This is, as far as we know, the oldest elective surgery that exists.
Oh, for sure.
And it goes back possibly 10,000 years.
10,000? Wow. Well, the only disagreement I would have with you is we discovered that trepanation is a time-honored...
Well, I guess I'm talking about planned and elected surgeries.
Right. So you go into the doctor, you say, look, cut a bit off the tip of my dick, drill a hole in my head.
Right.
I got places to be.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
It's the Ice Age. It's not like I have a lot of free time.
Yeah. There are those who theorize that this is like 15,000 years old, this particular surgery.
Weird.
There's no real consensus as to why it started or how it came to be. There are some interesting theories. One guy, Peter Charles Remondino, theorized that in 1891 that literally the captured slaves were circumcised because a penectomy or a castration would kill the slave. So they just decided to do a little thing to mark them. Why you need to mark your slave's dick? I mean, just get a brand like everybody else.
Right.
But
Give them a dumb haircut. Draw a dick on their forehead like civilized people.
Well, they just wanted. I mean, they wanted to make sure that it was permanent and left your slave feeling defeated and lesser, or something. We don't know how it migrated, but
it's a dick move.
Wow. But it migrated. I mean, so it was a lot of the Mediterranean region, starting with Sudan and Ethiopia. The ancient Egyptians and ancient Semites did it. Several places in Africa. For some reason, it's been practiced by Aborigines in
Australia.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Various other Polynesian tribes did it. So this is a very, it's a worldwide phenomenon. I don't know why, but it is. Nobody really knows why this thing started.
Huh.
What we do know is that, and as you guys know, the Bible started to talk about it pretty early on. Genesis, chapter 17, when Abraham became Abraham, and as a 99-year-old man was promised by God that he would father a whole bunch of people with his 90-year-old wife, which he literally laughed at, which is hilarious.
They were bad at counting years.
Yeah, exactly. But God promised him that if he would slice off the end of his dick and then convince everybody around him to do the same.
Right.
Which he did, making him the greatest salesman in Earth's history.
Hey guys, I have an idea.
You got to try this.
Hear me out.
Listen.
Yeah, you got to. This is terrific.
I just cut the end off your penis. Turns out you don't need it.
Yeah.
You guys are going to love this thing. And look, I just fathered a child with a 90-year-old woman. I'm 99. Boom, baby. It's the hottest new rage.
And of course, it's amazing that it's in Genesis, which is the same book where man and woman were created through various means. That we've talked about that before. So God just made all these people, and now he's discovered there needs to be an aftermarket modification.
Exactly.
God at one point is drunk, looks down and goes, "What's he got on the end of that thing?"
What the hell?
Well, oh God, did I do that?
He issued a recall.
No. You know what?
Foreskin recall.
I hate that. I hate that. I want, you know what? All of my people, I don't care what the other people do, but my people need to cut that off.
Yeah, there's two things we know about the Bible, is that God hates birds,
Yes.
and he cannot stand an uncircumcised penis.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll read to you from Genesis 17. Here we go. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. He's talking to Abraham here. The covenant you are to keep, every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money with money from a foreigner. So yes, your purchased children also need to be snipped.
Sure.
Those who are not your offspring, whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be everlasting covenant. And I guess that means don't grow it back. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. Circumcised from his, he has broken my covenant.
Is that how Abraham sold it? It'll grow back.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about this.
Yeah, right.
But this way, God will know that you love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, God knows. It's the only way that God knows that you're one of his.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to just go ahead and do this to yourself, random, willy-nilly, so God will definitely know.
Right.
Yahweh seems more obsessed with penis than Boyd K. Packer. Right?
Your little, slightly smaller factory.
Take the tarp off your factory.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey-yo, all the Mormons out there, you know what we're talking about.
Now, it's interesting because we Americans see circumcision as a totally normal thing. Mm-hmm. It seems because, especially up until our generation, everybody did it.
Yeah.
It's just everybody did it.
Yeah.
Most American Christians assume that it is also a Christian rite. It's in the Bible after all.
Right.
Not taking it into account, in the New Testament, in Acts chapter 15, it says, certain people came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the non-believers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. This brought Paul and Barnabas into sharp dispute.
Yeah, that's right.
And debated with them. It's not like Christian tradition has never had a circumcision tradition.
That was one of the, like you said, that was one of the big breaks with Judaism was about circumcision and Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
So
it's decidedly not a Christian thing.
Decidedly not. Yeah. So what the hell happened? It is, however, what religion has the most circumcisions is Islam.
Really?
Islam, of all the circumcisions in the world, most of them are Islamic circumcision.
So it's typically Muslim babies are circumcised.
Yes.
Huh. I didn't know that.
And
so of that giant pile of infant foreskins, a big portion of them are Islamic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So why the hell are 3 formerly Mormon boys sitting in this room cut?
Do you remember the movie, was it Europa?
Yeah.
About the young
I was just thinking about that.
Jewish kid who then hides in a Nazi Hitler Youth School, and it's a true story. He survived the war that way.
Oh.
And I remember I probably saw it when I was like 1920.
Yeah.
And I remember being very confused because there's this whole issue about foreskin.
Uh-huh.
And he was a Jew, so he didn't have a foreskin.
He had to shower with the other
but all the
boys.
German kids did. And I was like, what? I thought everybody was circumcised.
Right.
Yeah. So, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened. In Victorian era, in the mid 1800s,
Good times.
great times, there became vast concerns about masturbation.
Yes.
Masturbation
Not like today.
could create anything from epilepsy to madness to, if you've got a slight cough, anything and all ills.
Doug starts coughing.
Anything could be caused by masturbation, and it must be stopped at all costs. So many prominent doctors and sort of gurus of the time started to recommend masturbation for their children.
Circumcision.
Masturbation. Damn it!
Really?
It would have gone a very different direction.
Does your son masturbate enough?
Son, can we chat?
I'm going to read you a quote. Quote, "A remedy which is almost always successful in small boys is circumcision, especially when there is any degree of phimosis, which is that's when the foreskin hasn't fully retracted. And because we'll get into the anatomy of the thing, but the foreskin is sort of connected to the head of the penis, to the glands, for the first several years of a boy's life, unless something happens, and then eventually that the membrane that's holding it on there eventually just releases. If it doesn't release, that's what he's referring to with the phimosis. The operation should be performed by a surgeon without administering an anesthetic, as the brief pain attending the operation will have a salutary effect upon the mind, especially if it be connected with the idea of punishment."
Good Lord.
That
Jesus.
is from Dr. Kellogg of Cornflakes fame.
That is called torture.
That's called torture,
Yeah.
and was the delight of all English and Americans at the time.
I'm suddenly freaked out about what cornflakes
I was just
be.
thinking that.
A shriveled up little brown thing.
Did
Have
he
you ever looked
create
at a
the
cornflake?
markets? Yeah, exactly.
It looks like a scab.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
So yeah,
yes,
inflicting pain on what age did Dr. Kellogg recommend circumcision?
about masturbatory age. So literally,
really?
Literally, he wanted to make sure that these boys saw and associated that pain with their sexuality.
Jesus God.
Jesus.
He also recommended application of carbonic acid to the clitoris of young girls. So
Good God.
this was considered healthy and good, and it's what really launched the circumcision craze of the mid to late 1800s and early 1900s.
It was like Beatlemania.
It was. It was. If you didn't have, guys with foreskins were just embarrassed as all shit.
And Dr. Kellogg, I don't know if he was a doctor.
He was.
Kellogg
I think.
also was very, very tied up. And this is quackery and junk science, but
Right.
he was also very, very tied up in the eugenics craze of
Yep.
the time.
Yep.
Basically, cramming human skulls with rice grains to see
Right.
how to prove white superiority and preventing miscegenation and all. So, buy your cornflakes, everyone.
Yes, indeed. And he was also very into enemas. So that's
Was he?
fun. Yeah.
I
Healthy.
think there was that Matthew Broderick comedy many years ago where
Yeah.
he goes to receive some treatments in the
The
Victorian
road
era.
to Wellville, wasn't it?
The Road to Wellville, and I think it was based on Kellogg.
Yeah,
I think
it was.
really the character
It was
was based
indeed.
on Kellogg.
Yep.
Just absurdities.
And these were common, like these health spas that had the worst health ideas in the world
Right.
were common all over the U.S. And this is also the same time, not for nothing, that the great American religions of Mormonism, Seventh Day Adventism, and
The Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses
Yeah.
cropped up.
Good times.
Bad ideas abounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a big one was cutting the tip of your dick off. So let's actually talk a little bit about what this is.
Should we?
And bad ideas abounded should be just what every history book is called from now on.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we have to.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Well, okay, I don't need to get too deep into this, but if you don't know, when a male human is born, they have a penis, and that penis has a skin covering that goes over the head of it, and that skin covering, like I said, is has a membrane that attaches it to the glands which is the head of the penis, and this procedure, you start by jamming a thing under it to separate it from the glands, which is painful.
Yeah.
Then, you cut it off. Now, I should mention okay, hang on. I'm going to find the thing. I'm going a little out of order here, but I feel like we have to talk about all of this.
And I believe generally there's no anesthesia applied or administered.
Well, there hasn't. Traditionally, there hasn't been.
You're not supposed to be putting a day-old baby under, right?
No, but even a local.
Right. For the longest time, no anesthetic.
Right.
Because, and this seems crazy, it was the common belief up until remarkably recently that infants couldn't feel pain.
Right. So when they scream, when you cut the tip of their dick off, they're just having a nightmare.
Yeah,
they're just a little colicky.
They don't. I mean, the device that they strap these babies into, because there's like a device that literally has Velcro straps that hold down its arms and legs in this.
What the fuck? What are we doing?
I don't understand.
So I mean, literally, it's a torture device. They strap them down. The babies start to cry. But when this occurs, they start to scream.
Of course they do.
So yes, they cut the thing off, and it's so icky that I can't even think about it. I get the shivers real bad.
Aren't we kind of programmed by biology to react to the screaming of a baby? And isn't that kind of how we're supposed to function as a species?
Right, and we're also programmed not to cut a baby. Like,
right?
What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
So they have started using anesthetic, but generally speaking, they use topical anesthetics that don't really work. So a topical anesthetic is one thing; it doesn't do much. They can do injected anesthetics, but those, you're injecting, which hurts too, and B, it takes more time, which they don't want to do. Usually, the circumcision is given to like sort of the lowest on the totem pole at the hospital that you're at. Oh, so the least experienced, probably worst person there to be doing a sensitive surgery is the one who's elected to do it.
But that person is that medically trained, low on the totem pole person is 1,000 times more qualified than a moil.
Yeah.
Well, those guys are trained too, but we'll get to those guys.
But what that proves is that it is traumatic for the doctors, because clearly they want to be done with it as soon as they can. They hate it, right? I mean
that, and they just don't want to bother themselves with it.
It seems like a violation of the Hippocratic Oath to me, personally.
Well, let's talk about that, because what we should talk about is the medical justifications for doing it.
Yeah.
Now, we know that the medical justifications for doing it in the 1800s were bogus.
Yeah.
All of those were masturbation-based. Well, I can say this. I was circumcised. It did not stop me from masturbating.
Right.
By a long shot.
Right.
But was it when you were 14 and you got your first boner and a guy kicked open the door and cut off your foreskin?
That may have done it. That may have been effective.
A strange cereal magnate kicked in the door.
Right, exactly. Which,
Count Chocula came in and cut your dick off.
Very, very possible that I would never have had sex again, and probably gone and lived in the woods crying for the rest of my life. But so not effective at preventing masturbation, nor the madnesses that were comorbid with masturbation. Mm-hmm. Now, so there's been plenty of study, and there have been some interesting findings talking about circumcision and its prevention of disease.
Right.
There were 3 major studies that were done in Africa talking about circumcision and the spread of HIV.
Yeah.
And in high infection areas, circumcision cut the infection of HIV basically in half. So that's neat.
Right.
And probably it's probably statistically significant, even though lots of problems have been noticed in those studies.
In the studies,
Right.
yeah.
Of them, the studies don't seem to have been controlled for the possibility that men who are electing to go and have circumcision done to them also are more likely to be practicing safe sex anyway. These are men who are more concerned to begin with.
It's very hard to control for those things because people are not intentionally going to get infected with AIDS or not based for your study.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's tough to control for that sort of thing. Men might get circumcised. There's a possibility that once word gets out that this can help prevent AIDS infection, men will stop using condoms because they think that their circumcision has taken care of the problem.
Right.
Oh.
So there's a big danger there. And also men might get this does not translate to the rest of the world at all. This is an important thing where AIDS is a statistically and much more significant
In a real hotspot.
problem.
Yeah.
In South Africa, where it was parts of South Africa, it's 25% infection rate.
Wow.
Yeah. Do anything you can, probably.
Right.
But in a place where it's less than 0.5%, less than 1/3% of the population has HIV, this is not an effective prophylactic.
Yeah,
against that.
and okay, so as you said, neat. But safe sex practices are far better than cutting the tip of your dick off.
are 100% more effective.
Yeah.
Wait, why? Why does a circumcision cut?
It's unclear, but possible that that infected material can live under the foreskin for a period of time.
Right.
So also proper hygiene.
Yeah, safe sex
hygiene.
and proper hygiene.
are far more effective.
It's like saying, okay, we did a study where we had 10,000 people cut off their feet.
Right.
And in the 5 years following that, no foot injuries were reported. Right? Yeah, good study.
Right, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
There was no gout
right. There was no gout, no hangnails
in
were
that
reported.
population. There's also an effect on penile cancer. It does have circumcised penises are less likely to get penile cancer. However, penile cancer is incredibly uncommon. It affects roughly 1 in 100,000 men each year, and it's reasonably treatable. Just to give you a basis for
Today
comparison.
is the day that I knew that was even a thing.
Well, there you go. You were today years old. Just to give you a basis for comparison, women are 100 times more likely to get breast cancer,
Right.
and nobody is suggesting that we, as a prophylactic measure, we cut off all the breasts.
Right.
So there's that. There's also talks. It's a little bit effective in preventing urinary tract infections in small boys, but those are also incredibly rare and easily treated.
And it's a hygiene issue.
It may be a hygiene issue,
Yeah.
or it may just be that that it's just a slight. This tiny difference.
Right.
But to Uncle Mark's point, every appendage, every organ of the human body is problematic.
Yeah.
We don't cut them off in order to dispose of those problems.
Why
You know,
not?
I don't have my pancreas removed at birth
You know,
because I don't have pain, so I don't have pancreatic cancer.
but that's one of the bad ones.
Right.
Imagine how much easier you could breathe knowing that you don't have a pancreas
Right.
to get that cancer.
Life without a pancreas is living on easy street.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, so the United States Center for Disease Control still recommends circumcision.
No kidding.
The American Pediatric Society still recommends
I can't believe it.
circumcision because of these sort of and also, so it's useful. It apparently has a statistically significant effect on things like human papillomavirus, HPV. So there are reasons why this could be good. None of those reasons stand up if the man just practices safe sex.
Right.
Yeah.
If just good sexual hygiene and personal hygiene, and all of those reasons go out the door entirely.
Right. Which kind of comes full circle to the religious problem, which is we don't have adequate sex education in the United States because Christians giggle too much and they can't fucking handle it, right? So boys with foreskins are maybe not getting proper fucking information because of religious sensibilities.
Every time a Christian child learns about sex, an angel loses their wings.
An angel gets circumcised.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, however, that this craze of circumcision did not hit the rest of Europe. It hit the U.S. and England, and the U.K., did not hit the rest of Europe. Europe, however, their rates of STD, of STIs, are significantly lower than those of the U.S. This has not worked.
Right.
I just want to be clear. As a method of preventing sexually transmitted infections, this is not a useful thing.
Right.
If you look at the statistics.
Yeah.
So are there good reasons not to circumcise? Other than just it's a mutilation of a child?
Yeah.
Yes, there are. In point of fact, it's funny because I was talking about this with a woman friend of mine, and she was saying that she did not want me to correlate this to female genital mutilation.
Right.
Because to her mind, cutting off a clitoris, which is which is the usual thing of FGM,
Right.
is much more horrific, has a much more lasting and a much bigger effect on a woman's future sexual pleasure.
Right.
I am now, after doing this research, not at all convinced that that is true.
Really?
I don't know. One can't you can't compare two people's relative, subjective experiences.
Right.
But it turns out that the foreskin contains almost all of the man's
nerve endings,
sexual pleasure centers. The least sensitive part of the foreskin is more sensitive than the most sensitive part of the rest of the penis.
Really?
In tests.
Huh.
So, yes, they have when they saved the three of us from the perils of masturbation madness.
Yeah.
They actually cut off our clit, essentially.
Right.
The most sensitive part of our penis by far.
Wow.
And actually 4 or 5 different structures that have the most sensitive parts.
Wow.
So imagine how great your sex is now and know that that's crap.
Right.
Yeah, and I can only speak from making certain assumptions about the experience in our family. I'm sure our parents didn't even think about it.
Didn't occur to them.
I'm sure it was just like it was just
I
done.
think that's the case for most American families. It's just part of the birthing process.
Well, and it became this thing, after people became less obsessed with stopping masturbation, sort of the Victorian era died down. At that point, it had been just so normalized.
Yeah.
It was just de rigueur.
Yeah.
And you just did it, and I want my son to look like me. Of course I do, and it's just
a
what
father
you do.
thinking, you know what? It's worth mutilating my baby, so our penises are similar.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that the standard practice for non-Jewish people in this country is that the baby is taken away from the parents so they don't witness this thing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing if most parents, if they witnessed their child being mutilated, they would not have the second boy circumcised.
Yeah.
It would just not happen.
Yeah.
However, it's not something that they witness. Here's an interesting. Yes, it's sex for men with a foreskin is definitely better. Sex for women with a man with a foreskin also apparently significantly better.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, there was a study of U.S. women. 85% of U.S. women who had experienced sex with both circumcised and intact men preferred sex with intact men. Sex with a circumcised man was associated with pain, dryness, and difficulty reaching orgasm.
Yeah.
It's almost as if it's there for a reason.
Yes.
It's almost as if
There's no...
we co-evolved with our lady friends
Yes.
to have sex with a foreskin. The foreskin is, as it turns out, the reason that this works is that the foreskin acts as a sort of
almost like a lubricant.
It's basically sort of does the function of a lubricant. So the woman's natural lubrication stays inside of her rather than being pulled out with by the head of the penis.
Huh.
I didn't find any reports on how it affected gay sex, except that if you go to Grindr, it's very important to all of them whether you are cut or uncut. And so
that's always been part of gay culture.
Men have an opinion about this.
Right.
So it's something where all of the arguments for are pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
But to me, the main thing is literally, and this is what the three of us have already sort of come to our own feelings about this.
Yeah.
There are going to be listeners who have not, and they are going to have strong feelings about this. And I'm sorry if we seem flippant or if we seem already decided on this point. But deal with your emotions on this thing, because in the end, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, you are mutilating a child.
Yeah.
An utterly helpless infant. Utterly helpless.
You're not. They cannot consent to this.
No.
This is unnecessary.
And it's medically unnecessary. Yep. It's something that they could choose later on if they wanted to.
That's my biggest thing. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you just said it's not illegal, but it's illegal before this man can choose for himself.
As are all elective surgeries.
Right.
Boob jobs, lip, what do you call that? Making your lips bigger or whatever.
Right.
If someone did that to a baby, they would be in jail. When someone turns...
I kind of want to see a baby with a boob job, just because that is making me laugh as a visual. But don't do it.
Well, our president was upset that his younger daughter was not born with voluptuous breasts, and he spoke about that on television.
He spoke about that on television.
Yeah.
But you become an adult. You can have elective surgery. That's your right. This is an elective surgery being inflicted on an infant with no choice and no say in the matter.
I can't think of a single good reason. You cite those semi-anomalous statistics about, urinary tract infection here, AIDS hotspot here, but I just don't. There's other ways to prevent those issues.
If you literally just it's 1,000 times better to just teach your boys about safe sex and make sure that they understand.
Yeah, condoms are 100% effective.
They're almost 100%.
Almost 100%.
Quite,
yeah, exactly. But this is, vanishingly small.
Yeah. Well, if you're again, it can cut the incidence of AIDS transmission significantly in a population where it's already rampant. I do want to talk a little bit about the religious aspect of this, because we know that there are religious traditions that are important. We read the Genesis. We know that the Jews, it's very important to the Jewish people.
Yeah.
They should stop doing this. Mm-hmm. I know that that's culturally insensitive or whatever, but this is horrific. And not only is it horrific to do to a baby, the way that some Jews, we talked about the Moyles. These are rabbis that are specifically trained to do the circumcision. There are some, I know you guys know about it. Some of our listeners are not aware of the fact that one of the ways of stemming the blood flow from the penis, these Moyles will put their mouths on the penis.
Like if you cut your thumb and you suck on the blood.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
And some of these Moyles have mouth-borne diseases.
Yes. Yeah. They were giving, was it syphilis?
Herpes.
They were giving herpes
to babies.
Can be transmitted to a baby because of your fucking stupid religious practice that goes back, 3,000 years or whatever. We know better now, guys.
There are hyper religious, true believing Jews that do this.
Yeah.
But there's in the Jewish community, there is a huge number of not particularly religious Jews, but they're culturally Jewish, and they kind of they'll have Passover and they'll do the things and they'll go through the motions. Don't go through this motion.
Yeah.
If you see, historically speaking, it's interesting. Historians theorize that the original circumcision was just cutting a very little bit off of the foreskin, and there was this Hellenistic period where the Greeks came over.
Hemlines change, right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a fashion thing.
Yeah.
The Greeks came over. They hated it. They hated this practice and thought it was barbaric and whatever. So
They were right.
there were correct. There were Jews that would pull on their create devices to pull on their foreskin so that they could blend in because they wanted to do like naked sports, which were all the rage with the Greeks.
Keep talking.
Right? You're into it.
Yeah.
So that's when the rabbis decided, well, but we can't even tell who's who. They decided you needed to cut off the whole thing.
Right.
That's when that happened, theoretically, according to one thing that I read.
Huh.
So it's a thing that so many people, especially in the United States, take absolutely for granted as just normal and fine and right and correct and whatever. And doctors usually won't sit a parent down and say, here's what's happening. Here's why it's recommended by this group. Here's why it's not recommended by this group. And just have their parents make the decision informed.
Yeah.
Usually what's going to happen is if you have a boy, they're just going to say, hey, you want it circumcised? And the parents will just,
Well, yeah.
well, I am. I
It's
guess.
like you go to the car wash and it's like, oh, you want the undercarriage spray? And
Right.
you're like, sure, check the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't check that box.
My penis is very important to me.
Yes.
And I didn't get to have this choice.
Doug's penis is less important to me.
Only slightly.
I hope so.
Yeah.
On some point.
I
on
mean,
some level.
it's somewhere. It ranks somewhere. I just haven't really.
You haven't you haven't done the spreadsheet yet.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 0 and 100.
Yeah.
No, and I didn't get to have this choice.
No.
Just so, any parents out there, listeners who have children that have done this, please don't feel like we're attacking you.
No, and and that's the other thing is that some parents may feel guilt or may
Right.
feel bad about this. We get where you may have been coming from.
Right.
There were
It's a crazy
everybody
time,
was
the birth of
told
a
to
child.
do this.
Yeah.
And is still told to do this.
Yep.
And but if you're having a boy, don't.
But I will say,
I'm saying.
I wish
Or
I
a
had-
girl.
I wish I exactly
Or a girl.
Yes.
I wish I had my foreskin. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
It was taken from me before I could say anything, and it sucked. I mean, it doesn't suck.
You know, it's funny because
I don't know what it would have been like, but
I was
damn it.
I was like I wasn't mad about it. I mean, I knew that it probably shouldn't have happened, but the more research I did about this thing,
The bit more angry you got.
I'm like, I feel like I was crippled.
Years ago, I was talking to a doc. I just went to a doctor for something, and it was a guy I hadn't talked to before, and he's like, "Okay, let's get a little history on you. Have you had this?" And he's like, "Have you ever had any surgeries?" And I said, "Just that involuntary one," and he nearly dropped the clipboard. He was like, "What?" And I said, "Well, circumcision." He's like, "Oh, ha 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 ha." Check.
Right.
Yeah, and it was true.
yeah.
But his response should be what a response is. Like,
Yeah.
you don't do involuntary fucking surgery.
Right.
So yes, parents shouldn't feel terrible about it. The milk is spilled.
This is not to make, and men, you can go through all sorts of feelings if you were circumcised.
Yeah.
Probably don't obsess about it. It's not going to do you any good
Yeah.
to obsess about it. Some guys do grow theirs back.
Try to reconstruct. Yeah.
And that's a thing that is doable. It's not going to be comfortable, and it's going to be.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, well,
But if
there are devices out there.
Yeah.
if this show has a prime directive, it is Uncle Mark's the funny one. If it has a second prime directive, it is that think about things, right?
Yeah.
There are so many things that are just taken for granted in this world,
Right.
that we all just do, and we go through the motions, and many of them have these bizarre Iron Age origins like
Right.
this, Stone Age origins like this, that just stop and think for a minute, and your life will probably improve.
Yeah, and when you do this to a baby, remember you are literally scarring them for life.
That's an undeniable truth.
Yep.
And with that,
I've so enjoyed our time together
right,
today, fellas.
let's all just shake it out and
Yeah.
move on.
All right, let's move on.